attention, please. At this time, Marilyn Constantine will give the invocation.
Let's bow our heads. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together for this occasion. Thank you for the many years of faithful service that it represents. And we thank you, Father, for your great faithfulness to us. Bless this food, if you will, now, the fellowship around the tables, and may all that is said and done be pleasing in your sight. For we pray.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention again, we'd like to kick the program off. And let me back off. I'll try that. I would like to start the program, first of all, by proposing a toast. I would like to propose a toast to the gentleman that we are honoring tonight, Mr. William G.H. Wiese, better known, I would think, in circles around as Mr. Knox Memorial. I'm sure that in that man's veins run purple and gold, not just purple. Mr. William Wiese, may you thoroughly enjoy this evening. May there be many long days ahead for you to see this scholarship effort come to fruit. And most of all, and deservingly, may this scholarship remind people of the things you've done and who you are. Let's drink to that.
Sir.
Here, here. At this time, I would also like to introduce the people at the head table that have been responsible and have spearheaded and guided this effort. I will start on the far end. Said this was going to be easy. Brenda O'Brien, representing the Alumni Association, also a former student. Chuck Parfo, Canton Club, alumni, former student. Leland Bullock, family member. Janet Wise Bullock, oldest daughter. Of course, Mr. Wiese. My wife, Karen Harmer. Reg LaPointe, representing the Board of Education. And Louina Bristol, representing the Edwards Knox Teachers Association. I've also been asked to announce that Mr. Murmur is going to be shuffling a bell, trying to take a few pictures, and while he's doing that, from around each table there will be a yellow piece of paper circulated. If you would please sign your name and any comments or well wishes or whatever. These things are going to be given to Mr. Wiese later to keep as remembrances for him. So when that comes around, please make sure you sign up and add your comments and so forth. Next on the program, we have a message from Mert Zant, who was a former colleague and lifelong friend of Mr. Wise's. And he has sent a message, and that's going to be read to us by Louina Bristol.
Dear Bill, we are very sorry that we cannot be with you for this occasion, but I had made a previous commitment at Saratoga and have been unable to get out of it. We certainly would have enjoyed being with you. Since I cannot be there to participate in the program, someone will, yeah, right, bifocals and no lights don't work. participate in the program, maybe someone will mention some of the items I have in this letter. Sincerely, Mert. Bill and Jen came to Russell in 1942. They moved here from Watertown, a busy city, but not as busy as it is now, but a far cry from the little hamlet of Russell. The story is that Bill promised Jen that they would stay only 1 year. Whether or not that story is true, I cannot say. However, they were a gracious, friendly couple, and we all took them into our hearts. Bill came to Russell as a social studies teacher, and in 1944 he became vice principal, a position he held until he became principal in 1946. As you can see, they stayed and stayed and stayed, and made Russell their home and raised their family there, 3 boys and 2 girls, and they are great children. I will add now that the Van Zant twins, of which I am one, have long been known in Russell, but now one of Bill's granddaughters has surpassed that by giving us triplets, all girls. And in a way, we are doorstep relation, thanks to Bill's granddaughter and our great-nephew. I have known Bill for many years. When I came back from the service in 1946, I had decided that I would not go back into teaching. But Dr. Paul West from Potsdam State came to see me and wanted me to go back to the college as principal of the campus school. After I had been home for 2 weeks, I went back. Lear was in Russell at that time as director of elementary education, and since we could not find a place to live in Potsdam after commuting for a year, I resigned from the Potsdam school and came to Knox Memorial to teach. Hugh Kelly was principal then. Right. And after a few days, he asked me to go for a ride with him. We went down the Herman Road, and he told me that he was about to resign because of his health, and asked me who I would suggest as principal to replace him. I told him that as far as I was concerned, I would recommend Bill Wiese, without any reservation whatsoever. Not that that had anything to do with the decision, but Hugh did resign, and shortly after, Bill was appointed principal, a position he held until his retirement. It was my pleasure to work with and for Bill for the next 3 years. I left Knox in 1950 to go to Gouverneur as Director of Elementary Education. I became superintendent in 1961 and remained superintendent until my retirement in 1972. During that time, Bill and I had many conversations about education. We have a great respect for each other's opinions. As you all know, Bill did a great deal for all of the students of Knox Memorial, before and since he retired. We have been friends for many years, and I am very proud of that. Bill is an outstanding individual with many, many talents. He had great musical ability and played drums with many of the area bands for many years. I sincerely hope that the William Wiese Scholarship will come to fruition, not only to help the students of Edwards Knox, but as a reminder of a great person and principal. Bill always had a story, and I cannot close without one, and hope he hasn't heard it. A man went to Las Vegas and won $3 million. He called his wife and told her he had just won $3 million and to pack for a long, long trip. She said, "I need to know where we're going. What shall I pack? North, south, east, west? I need the right clothes." He said, "I don't care. Which direction? As long as you are out of the house by the time I get home." Congratulations, Bill, and may you have many more years of service to the students of Knox Memorial and to the community of Russell. Sincerely, Mert Van Zant.
In introducing the next speaker, I am reminded of around the Canton Club here, there seems to be kind of an ongoing battle. Mr. Wiese used to be partners with Mike Miller playing golf. And it seems that one would say that he was carrying the other one. Well, I'm a partner with Mike Miller now, and I know he's a pretty good golfer. So I mentioned this to Mr. Wiese a few minutes ago. He says, yeah, he says, Miller might be better, but he says, I was the one keeping score. But it did seem that when they were playing together, Mr. Wiese was always kind of picking Mike's brain, trying to get a little bit of help on his golf game. Well, Miller's not one to give out his advice, you know, because he likes to sneak in there and win the President's Cup and do these things. And one day, though, he did offer to give a little bit of advice to Mr. Wiese after Mr. Wiese had teed off and he didn't quite clear the ladies' tee. He said, Bill, he said, I am going to tell you this. You're standing too close to the ball. Well, Mr. Wiese kind of jockeyed around and he thought, boy, that's good advice because golfers like to have advice that's good. But then in the next breath he said, you're standing too close to the ball after you hit it. Mike Miller.
I didn't know Bill before he came to Russell, but after the first day in Russell, when he came in 1942, he drove into the station with an old Dodge. He wanted some gas. He also wanted credit. You know, an educator has got to have some fun. So Bill and I, we bowled together, we played golf together, we played poker together, we hoisted a few beers together. Did I say a few, Bill? And Barb and I went to many dances where Bill played drums for Joe Calipari. And they was wonderful years. God bless you, Bill.
In introducing the next speaker, I'll check this because I remember when I was a young lad going to a minstrel show and Mike Miller told this one himself. He did this to the microphone. He said, if there's anything Barb hates, it's a dead mic. Barb Miller.
You're right about that, Dick. Well, Bill came to Russell the year before I did. I went up in 1943. Didn't know how long I'd stay either, but I stayed too. Lived in Russell until '85. We shared a lot of good times together. We went to New York to the World Series. Remember that, Bill? And we bowled in the co-ed bowling with Jen and Bill, and of course I worked with him and for him. He was a great guy to work for. I enjoyed it, and sure enjoy being here tonight with everybody. And Bill, I have one little thing to tell you. Due to inflation, the cost has gone from 2 to 3.
The next speaker that it is my privilege to introduce is a former teacher and colleague of Mr. Wiese's, as well as a longtime friend, Ursel Wilcox Grizzly. Ursel?
I think I should have been the first speaker. A lot of the things that I'm going to say have already been said. When I got out of the service in 1946, I came back to Russell after having been gone a number of years, and I only intended to stay a little while. Hugh Kelly was the principal, and he hired me as a school nurse for 1 year. That's all I intended to stay. Well, I stayed 25. Shortly after school started that first year, Mr. Kelly resigned. Bill became principal. I worked for and with Bill for 25 years. There were good years and bad years. We had a little tiff once in a while. Albany chose to call them attendant supervisors, but a lot of you know them as truant officers. But we'd have some kid that would be absent 2 or 3 days a week, and I'd go in the office and I'd say to Bill, boot him. But for some reason, Bill seemed to think that the school was there for a purpose, and that was to teach kids. So they stayed in school. I not only worked with Bill, but we played together also. We played bridge together, and he and his mother always accused Jen and I of cheating. But we didn't, because we didn't know how to cheat. We also bowled in the co-ed league with Bill and Jen. And a good many nights I've spent here in the Canton Club when Bill was playing drums with Joe Calipari. Bill, I commend you for starting this fund. I wish you lots of luck, good health, and God bless.
We will now have a message read by Brenda O'Brien from Pete Beatrice, who was a retired chief school officer from Harrisville Central School. Brenda?
What a wonderful way to honor a most deserving person. No school ever had a better administrator, and I am sure Bill has given his best to the Canton Club. I had hoped for a change in my plans, but find it impossible to attend Bill's testimonial dinner. Thank you and your fine committee for the invitation. Sincerely, Pete Buck.
The next gentleman I'd like to introduce is a longtime friend of Mr. Wiese's and a former president of the old Knox Memorial Central School, Jim Campbell. Now, there seems to be a little story that goes along with these two, and I thought maybe I ought to at least let you in on it a little bit. Now, those of you that know Mr. Wiese know that he is never outdone when it comes to speaking or how he chooses his words, or he seems to never get caught in the corner somehow. So it seems it went this way. They were having a board meeting one night, and came a knock on the door. Well, Mr. Wiese graciously got up and went out to see who was there. And he was confronted with a gentleman that said, I'd like to buy half a school bus. Well, Mr. Wiese says, you can't buy half a school bus. You know, it just can't be done. So anyway, they went around for a few minutes, and finally, to appease him, he said, well, let me go in and talk to the president of the Board of Education. And so he started back in, and unbeknown to him, the gentleman was right behind him. So when Mr. Wiese got in there, he said to Jim, he says, "Egad," he says, "there's some jerky idiot out here that wants to buy half a bus." Well, he turned around and noticed the guy was there, and he says, "This fine gentleman would like to buy the other half." Jim Campbell.
When I got the invitation to come out here for a testimonial dinner for Bill, it's quite a long haul from Chicago out here, and I thought about it for a while. And then I got to thinking, you know, this is a chance to tell a large number of people what I think of Bill Wiese, and I hollered to my wife, I said, throw your bags in the car, I'm finally going to get to tell him what I think of him. When I think of Bill Wiese, a lot of strange things come up. We've been apart for 20 years. One of the things that oddly enough came up, we were traveling to a National School Boards Convention out in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And probably there aren't many of you people that realize that occasionally Bill would drink a bottle of beer. But as we were going across some of the prairie lands in Minnesota, that thought occurred to him, so we stopped. Not too long after that, nature took over, and it seemed that there was a necessity that had to be answered. And Bill fretted and stewed about it for a while, and we were in an area that was as flat as the top of this podium, not a blade of grass over 4 inches high, and Bill finally said, well, this is it. So he stopped and got out of the car. We hadn't seen any traffic from either direction, it seemed like, for 15 or 20 minutes. Bill got out and did the best he could to get off in the distance, and a steady parade of traffic came down through. And he got back in the car pretty disgusted, and he said, "God dang," he said, "son of a..." He said, "It seems like these damn farmers been waiting 10 years to see something unusual." When I think of Bill Wiese, I think of in sort of little flashes that come out of the past. I think of 13 years of cooperation and Bill's dedication to the education of the children of Knox Memorial. It's easy to think back that there were nights, 1 o'clock in the morning when we first started, when somehow or other, some way or another, there had to be more money for education. At that time, the school board was not in a position to grant the money. Bill would stay up and there were a lot of nights, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and he was massaging the budget. He was massaging the general fund, any fund that he could get his greasy little hands on, to try to get another nickel, another dollar for the children or the teachers at Knox Memorial. Always it was Knox Memorial. If you went to a playoff, you could begin to see what made Bill Wiese tick. The pride that came out in the Knox Memorial children, the students, the accomplishments. If you were there with him on the podium or down in the audience at graduation time, again that Knox Memorial thing came through loud and clear. I was privileged to sit with Bill in some meetings, with Bob Witt when some of our building programs were in process. I remember Bob Witt one night in almost total frustration about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning saying, "Good God, Bill Wiese, just because it's Knox Memorial, you can't get any more use out of a square foot of building, so stop bitching about it." We were in Albany, and this one sticks in my mind and is very close to me. We had been down there negotiating for funds. We were trying to get a new building. Obviously, there wasn't a big tax base in Russell, and Bill was trying as hard as he could to get across the budget and the funds committee what was necessary for education. And it got down to the point where finally, and I think the guy's name was Arnold, said, "Do you realize, Mr. Wiese, that in order to fund the program you're proposing would require 92% state aid?" And I don't know if you've ever heard Bill say Judas Priest before and slam his hand down, but he said, "Judas Priest, Mr. Arnold," he said, "I want to tell you something. The children in Knox Memorial are just as good as the children anywhere else on the face of God's green earth, and I'm going to tell you if it takes 92% state aid to get them the education they need, then by God, you better find the money." I guess I would close and I would say, if it ever becomes possible, and it may someday, that we can actually have a clone, I would strongly suggest that the powers to be, that they clone an educator like Bill Wise. The world needs more of them.
And now it's my privilege to introduce a more recent board member, Bill Brewer. Bill?
I remember Mr. Wise. When I went to elementary school, grade school, I was at West Pierpont. The fall of '46, I went to Knox Memorial, one of 6 students from West Pierpont. We were scared to death. We knew no one at the school. We didn't know any of the teachers. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know where to go. And by the time we had learned the difference between Mr. Vincent and Mr. Schwartz and Mr. Collison, and found out some of the other kids' names, one day this big tall fellow came in the room and had a great big smile on his face. And I noticed after that he always had this big smile on his face. He introduced himself to us as Mr. Wise. I hadn't seen him in school, but I didn't know what his name was, and he told us that he was going to be our new principal. We saw quite a lot of Mr. Wise, and like I say, he always had this big smile on his face when he'd see him. When a kid needed some help, they went to see Mr. Wise. We had no guidance counselor at the time. Mr. Wise was our guidance counselor. Mr. Wise was senior play director. I remember as a senior. All the frustrations we gave that man, it's a wonder that he ever made it through the year. Jim said something about sitting on the stage with him at graduation time. I remember the big smile and handshake he always gave every kid when they got their diploma. It was a welcome feeling to see that. Some years after I got through school, I had the privilege to be on the school board with him. It was at that time that I realized the time and effort that he spent getting that new school going that we had the privilege of graduating from. And as Jim mentioned here a few moments ago about his efforts in getting the money to get this going, I don't know how he had time to do all this work for us. We appreciate it, Mr. Wise. Now, his name is William. His friends call him Bill. But to me, he's Mr. Wise.
The next gentleman on the program is also a former member of the Knox Memorial Central Board of Education, Mr. Lester Hatch. Lester?
Well, I don't really believe that there's much more we can say. I was privileged to be a student of Bill's, not one of Bill's better students. And I was also privileged to be on the school board and work with and for Bill. And I think the mere fact that this room is packed with people that came to honor Bill certainly says more than I ever could. Bill, we're happy to be here.
The next portion of our program is a message from Mr. Pat Miranda, who was the chief school officer at Clifton Fine Central School for many years, and also an old buddy and partner of Mr. Wise's. And to read this message, Rowena Bristol.
Dear Bill, I am really sorry I am unable to attend your testimonial dinner. I am leaving now for home downstate prior to flying to Florida for the winter. It would have been much easier for me to say a few words rather than to try to write something. However, I will recall a few instances which took place through the years, which you and I would remember. Do you remember the argument we had during a baseball game? Oswegatchie was the place. It was over whether the ball had hit fair down the third base line. Of course, I won. We were playing the game in Oswegatchie. Do you remember the old league meetings held at the Knox School during the time that a Mr. Crandall was president at Harrisville, and he sent that young Jack Doran, the coach, to represent Harrisville, and he tried to tell all the principals how to run the league? Do you remember the days when you were the official timer at the Knox basketball games, and the trouble Clifton Fine would give you during all the close games? Will you ever forget when we held our league meetings at Clifton Fine and met afterwards at the Newton Falls Hotel for dinner? The shrimp, the steak were great, and you and Eric never left the party until the wee hours when all the milk was gone. Can you remember the meeting at Knox on November 22nd when you got a telephone call and came back to tell us all that President Kennedy had been shot and how hard you cried? I believe I have rambled enough. I know you are having a great party and sincerely hope you are enjoying the well-deserved testimonial. I certainly have enjoyed our relationship over the years. I hope you plan to attend the superintendent's get-together next June and meet all the old gang. Good luck and good health to you, Bill, and may God bless you. Your friend, Pat Miranda.
The next speaker on our program is a retired gentleman. He is a former St. Lawrence, Lewis County Superintendent of Schools, Charles Turcotte. Charles?
Thank you, Mr. Heimer, your bill, honored guests. I want to thank, first of all, Don Morgan and Mrs. Bristol for the invitation for this wonderful testimonial. I've known Bill a good many years, most of them in the professional lane. I assume the colors of the Russell Knox Memorial School are purple and gold. Now, I know it, and Mr. Heimer said it ran in his blood. Now, I know it. St. Patrick's Day, sometimes the beer is colored green. I've never known it to be colored purple or gold. If you distilled it out, it would be pure colorless liquid, I guess. Bill, you are part, we all were, many of us, of the greatest profession in the world. I think perhaps you look back through history and you try to gauge the importance of people. Many people will think of the great conquerors, Alexander and Napoleon, but really the people who have really had the most influence was a profession of which you and I and several here were members of, a proud profession, that of teaching. Because the people who really moved the world were people like Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, Erasmus, Jesus of Nazareth, St. Thomas Aquinas, Martin Luther. Those were the people who really had the greatest influence. And there is a form of immortality, call it what you will, but the effect that you had on the students that you taught, as every teacher does, extends far, far into the future. And it is your chance at immortality. This is a great testimonial. The fact that you are dearly loved by your community, your profession, is evidenced by the number of people in attendance here. May you be very successful getting a nice, big, fat scholarship fund. Thank you.
The next gentleman on the program is a former chief school officer and superintendent, and he is from Herman Cal, Mr. Jack Samley. And I think maybe Jack has kept track of the scoreboard and the clock once in a while when they were at Knox Memorial games. Jack?
Bill, I never watched the scoreboard. I always watched you. It's rather difficult to follow the former board members, a former district superintendent, former teacher. I've got a different perspective of this whole business. Oh. I don't know how you ran your school. I think it was good. I hope it was good. From all these people, it was excellent. And I didn't really care how you ran your school. The one thing that I remember about Bill, he provided me with an outstanding nurse. That's all I cared about right there. I'm a newcomer to this area because I didn't come to the North Country until 1966. Bill came in 42. You were cold a longer time than I was. But I used to drive to Knox. Bill and I would ride to BOCES meetings together, and we'd both complain and moan about various and sundry things. Lots of things. We solved the world problems while we were going to Canton and on the way back. And, I respected this man greatly because he had a lot more experience than I did when I started. And whenever I walked into Knox Memorial, everybody seemed to be busy. The teachers were teaching and the kids seemed to be listening, which was the purpose of the school. So I had to chalk one up for that man, Mr. Wise. That was his job, and he did it, as far as I could see, extremely well. Bill, it's been a pleasure for me to have known you all these years, and for you to have given me Janet as a nurse. And thank you for inviting me to come and listen tonight. Thank you very much.
We now have a message from Ines Butterfield, who is a former teacher in the Knox Memorial District. And this message will be read by Brenda O'Brien. Brenda?
Dear Bill, I regret I am unable to attend your testimonial dinner, a well-deserved function. I am recuperating from a hospital stay of 2.5 months, so cannot be with you. I hope the dinner is a pleasant one in every way. Congratulations and best wishes for a memorable evening. Ines Butterfield.
The next gentleman on the program to speak is a longtime friend of Mr. Wise's and associated with him through the club for many, many years here, Mr. Carl Henderson. Carl?
pleasure for Peg and I to be here tonight on this occasion of your testimonial dinner. We've known Bill and his family for over 25 years, and the four of us had some wonderful times. A group of us used to gather here on Saturday afternoons. It was Charlie Clark, Howard Raleigh, Larry Smith, Bill, myself, Bill Devine. While discussing the local and national problems, we would make a small wager on the professional bowling matches. Bill usually came out the overall winner for some reason. This is the way Bill's life seems to have been. Whatever he put his heart and mind to, he's come through the winner that he is today. Congratulations, Bill.
Now I'd like to introduce as the next speaker, the president of the Canton Club, Mr. Bob Ramo. Bob?
I'd just like to say that I haven't known Bill as an educator. I've known him as a club member. And when I became a member of the Canton Club, I met Bill for the first time. And I really knew that I would like him because he would say to me, "Having a nice day, young man?" And I said, "You know, as long as Bill's around, I'm going to feel pretty young." So Bill, I hope you can stay with us for another 40 or 50 years. We have a telegram here from Ronald Reagan. It says, "Dear Bill, I'm sorry that I can't be with you tonight, but Nancy and I can't get off the helicopter pad. You are probably the only man, besides myself, who does not dye his hair. So I want to wish you well in your retirement. Ronald Reagan." You do touch it up a bit, though. I tried to find out something about Bill and the Canton Club. So I called Bill and I said, "Bill, how long have you been a member?" Well, he said, "I've been a member since 1943. 43? That's 45 years. That's older than I am." And I said, "Bill, tell me, why did you belong to the Canton Club? Why did you join?" I said, "Was it the prestige of belonging to the Canton Club?" He thought a minute. He says, "No." I said, "Well, why did you join?" Well, he said, "In 1943 there wasn't much gas." And he said, "We didn't have enough gas to go bowling in Norwood, but we had enough gas to go bowling in Canton. So we decided to join the Canton Club." But he said, "Back then, Bob, it was only $5 to join." And he said, "Of course, with no gas and $5 to join," he said, it sounded really good to me." And then I asked some of his friends about what Bill had done here in 45 years. And most of the guys wouldn't tell me. Except Gus Hedlund. Gus tells me there was a dinner one night at the Stillwater Hunting Club. And he said Charlie Fox went down to pick up Bill to bring him up for dinner. He said, unfortunately, Charlie Fox went down with Mike Miller. And they ended up at the Russell Hotel to get some milk. And there happened to be Charlie Collins there, a man named Charlie Clark. That's true, Bill? And he said, by the time they got back to camp to have dinner, I guess it was venison, they had a ham sandwich. So Bill, you've brought a lot to the Camp Club. 45 years belonging to anything is a mystery to me. And to belong to this club, and I know that this club has meant a lot to the people of Russell because we still have a lot of members from Russell, and we hope that they will continue to be members. I know Bill as a gentleman. I've never heard Bill say anything disparagingly about anyone. He has come in, we've talked, and I can truly say he is a very unusual man because there is always some time when you're not feeling good or you're a little upset about someone and you want to blow off some steam. And I've never heard Bill do that. Bill has, I think, the philosophy, if you can't say anything good about anyone, then just don't say anything. And I respect him for that. And I know as a college admissions person that there are a lot of students who need to have money in order to complete their education. And I think what you're doing here tonight really is a living memorial to this man. And wherever those students go to college, I'm sure that the college will be in touch with Bill and tell Bill who the person is that received the scholarship. Will tell Bill, and usually the person will write to him and tell him how much that scholarship meant. And I think Bill, for many, many years, is going to be hearing from students probably across the country thanking you and him for giving them the opportunity to go to college. And I think that speaks very highly of Bill Wise. Thank you, Bill, for being a club member for 45 years.
It is now my privilege to introduce former superintendent of schools, Mr. Jim Constantine. Jim?
They made me laugh because I'm not here to praise Caesar, but to bury him. This is just like Knox Memorial, nothing works. The podium is wobbly and it squealed. Actually, I'd like to kind of go back almost 45 years, but it isn't quite that much, to the first time I met Bill Wise, which was in a different capacity than a teacher. First time I met Bill Wise was back when I was a freshman in college. Joe Calperi, that was mentioned earlier, that Bill played with, asked me if I would play saxophone in his band, and they had a job over in Messina. So I said, sure, I'd be very happy to. So the piano player also lived there in Potsdam. In fact, the piano player was a former music teacher over at Norwood Narvor. So I rode over with him because I didn't know where the hell Messina was. In fact, I didn't even know where Russell was. So anyway, we went over there, got there, and I started to take my sax out of the case and get everything set up. And Joe would introduce me to the various members of the band, and I kept thinking to myself, well, I've met this guy and this guy, but where the hell is the drummer? So after a while, this guy comes in, this funny-looking guy comes in with his big old bass drum that was left over from the Civil War, I swear. And I thought to myself, boy, this is going to be a swinger tonight. it wasn't too bad. But at that point in my life, little did I know what I was in for. Because 4 years later, when I graduated from Potsdam, my fraternity brother, who was teaching at Knox at the time, got drafted in the Army. And so he came over to Potsdam and he asked me if I would like a job. And so I said, sure. You know, I've been looking around, but I didn't have anything at that point in time. So I'd be very happy to come out. How do you get there? So he explained it to me. Well, I didn't go that way. I went another way. But eventually, you know, I kept driving through the woods and wondering when the hell am I ever going to get to Russell. Finally, I got there. And I walked into the office, and who do I see but the funny kid with the bass drum? So we talked about the job and everything, visited back and forth, and he said, well, the Board of Education was going to meet pretty soon, and he would recommend me for the job. And this was, you know, like around the first part of June. And I went back to Potsdam, packed up all my goodies, and went back home. And I waited and waited for the telephone call to come for the job. You know, 1 week went by, 2 weeks went by, and of course at that point in time, you know, I didn't know about Knox Memorial and how fast we did things. You know, why worry about September? We still got June to take care of. So anyway, I decided to give him a call. I told him who I was, because I figured he forgot. And asked him about the job. He said, oh yeah, he said, the board hasn't met yet. You know, we still got graduation and regents and all those things to take care of. The Board of Education will be probably meeting after that, so we'll give you a call. So I waited, you know, graduation came, and, you know, I'm sitting there wondering what the heck I'm supposed to do with my life, whether I'm going to get this job or if I should go into carpentry or something like that. So finally I got a telephone call telling me that I got the job. So that September I came to Knox Memorial. And of course my first introduction, you know, these guys get up here and talk about how Bill squeezed the, or, you know, always got money. Well, from my point of view, it was always squeeze the old nickel. Because when we first had a marching band, we go out, you know, we're marching around, and the drum major, you know what that drum major had for a baton? Was an old broomstick with a ball set in it. And I said to myself, you know, this can't last, because every time she twirled the ball, or the baton, the ball would come off, and we would have to put it all back together again. You know, something else left over from the Civil War. So we put up with that for a while, and finally I decided that something had to be done. But I knew that if I went in that office and asked for a baton for the drum major, I'd probably catch holy hell. So I didn't go. So Louina, was working with me at that time as helping me with the marching band and the twirlers and things. And she said, why don't you just go buy one? I said, all right, I'll go buy one. But boy, I know it's going to be hell to pay. So we bought one. So we're out front of the school there marching around. Bill happens to look out the window and, where the hell did that thing come from? So he, you know, I didn't go near him because I knew what I would catch. So Lorena happened to be in the hall, and of course, being the diplomat that she is, and Bill knew her very well, he asked her about that. And she said, Bill, she said, you told Jim to go ahead and buy that. And Bill said, I did? She said, yes, you did. That's why he bought it. Well, Bill probably went around in circles, went back in his office, and that was the last of that. Then another experience that I had with this man that was always throwing money around, the Big Harmer broke the sousaphone that we had, another relic from the Civil War. So I got up my courage and went up to the office and said, Bill, you know, the sousaphone's broken, we can't use it. Got to take it to a repairman. He said, what do you mean take it to a repairman? Take it down the shop. I'm sure Fred can fix it. And I thought to myself, my goodness gracious, this guy doesn't seem to understand that, you know, this takes competent people. Fred Palmer there, you know, he's just a shop teacher. What does he know about it? So anyway, I took it back. I took it in the shop and I told Fred, and he said, gee, I don't know, but maybe we can fix it. So he worked on it for a while. Finally got it so it would work, and it was sitting there in the shop, and I went in, reached over to pick the darn thing up, and that's when I hurt my back. And I was out of school I don't know how long, and Bill was upset because I took all that time, but it was his fault. All the time I'm up here, I know the wheels are turning over there, and he's going to get to speak after me. He always does. And like he came over to the table and he says, I don't need any notes, I can remember everything. And he will. That's when I'll catch it. So will the rest of you. But on the serious side, though, I have to say something. For myself, and I believe for those people who were privileged to be teachers during your administration. I have to say to you, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be a teacher. Because no matter what you did, how goofy or how stupid your mistakes were, Bill always allowed you to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, learn from the situation, and go back and do your very best. We always had that feeling. Besides, Bill, who wanted a funny-looking guy with a bass drum coming around telling me how to teach? I thank you, Bill. I really do. You're a wonderful guy.
And now I'd like to introduce Chuck Parlow. Chuck?
Greetings. I'd like to thank everybody that helped put this event together tonight. I don't have time to name them all. I would like to thank two people that originated this idea, near me, Bob Ramo and Joel St. Mary, who's not here. We're going to establish a scholarship fund in Bill's name. It's going to be a separate, independent identity. We're going to award it each year to someone that's going to continue on in the field of education. The scholarship committee will meet with these people and pick someone out. We've got a good start on it so far. And also, we've got some plaques we'd like to award. This first plaque is for the Can Club. It reads, William G.H. Wyatt Scholarship. If I could see it, I'd be lucky. In appreciation for dedicated service to Knox Memorial Central School and the Club of Canton, William G.H. Bill Wise, KMCS 1942-1973, club member since 1943. Bob?
I just want to say that for those of you who haven't been in the club for a long time, I think you realize that we have done some serious renovations this year, and I will make sure that this plaque is hung in a prominent place in the club so that they will know the dedication and time that Bill has given to the Canton Club. Thank you.
This second plaque reads the same thing. It's a little bit bigger. It's going to be hung in the new Edwards Knox building, and there's room for the scholarship winners to be posted here. I'd like to give this to Reg LaPointe, the current president of the Board of Education.
I'm very privileged and very honored to accept this on behalf of the Edwards Knox Central School Board. It will be placed in the new school for all past alumni, future alumni, and community people to see. I wasn't lucky enough to be one of the students of Bill, but I was one of the students when he was a principal at Knox. And one of the first things he did every year was to call all the students into the gymnasium and line us up on the seats. And everyone said, well, here we go, same old lecture we had last year. So, and he always made it, the way he was so fluent, and they always made it nice for the students. Where Charles and I graduated in 1969, those were tough years for us because there was one class of 1965, which Butch, his son, my brother, and Gary Bushall were here. They caused a lot of problems, and we were quite, I'm sure they caused a lot for Bill. We're quite fortunate that Knox was still standing after some of the bombs went off and teachers crying, etc. And for the next 3 or 4 years, the students there were very well behaved because they knew they couldn't get away with anything because a few of the players even missed ball games, which scared people. We were lucky enough to have another gentleman, a great gentleman named Carl Narhes there. And Carl loved crackers and cheese. And he used to send some of us down before class to go down and get crackers and cheese. So 2 or 3 of us went down one day to get some crackers and cheese for Carl. And we got down there and lo and behold, here comes Bill into the kitchen. And we thought, sure, we're going to get it. But all Bill said was, you play Edwards tonight, I hope you beat them. He said, thank you. We were very happy to get away with that. If you are lucky enough to go to an alumni banquet sometime, you'll see what I respect all the people in Russell, all the alumni, people in Russell Patrickville. He always gets a standing ovation. He always gives a very nice speech. People really love him there. And that's hard to say about some principals in some districts, I'm sure. Bill, you served the community of Russell well, you served the Canton Club well, and you have served the Knox Memorial Central School well. I hope that the recipients, upon receiving these scholarships, take the chance to get to know what Bill was about and respect him for that. And if, this might be greedy, but if they turn out to be half the person that Bill was, I hope that Edwards Knox will have them. Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
We've saved the best for last. We're going to give him a chance to defend himself. This last plaque is for Bill.
Maybe that one.
It's all yours.
We've been waiting for this all night.
That wonderful, it's all mine. Like Murray Vincent said, and some of you, I think you've heard me, Judas Priest. This is absolutely wonderful. I have been so touched tonight and so moved so many times, close to tears, that there is absolutely no kidding about that. I only wish, in addition to you people and what's been going on tonight, that in attendance could be my wonderful, wonderful wife. But I'm sure she is watching down from above and enjoying every second of it, because she would have been so proud with the way you people have turned tonight. I have a couple of things to say about some people. Tim Constantine wanted to talk about the fellow with the old drum. But what he didn't say was, the fellow with the old drum turned out to be one of the best goddamn drummers there was in the North Country. talks about coming to Knoxville Mile. He deserves a lot of credit because above everything else, Jim put the marching band of Knoxville Mile on its feet, and it's always been there since. Nice going, Jim. That's also part of my story here tonight, because while I'm getting a lot of credit for things that I did in Knoxville Mile and the way I worked and the boys and girls I had as students, and one thing that should be mentioned is the good Lord gave me the privilege of working with some wonderful, wonderful teachers. They were interested in teaching, showing their knowledge to the kids they had in class. And if one way didn't work with one student, they were not above trying something else. They were in capital letters all the way, teachers. I appreciate that privilege very, very much, you nice people out there. Thank you for working with me. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And also, I want to read this. If Linnell McKinnon was here, I asked her forgiveness for having a note, but after all, I couldn't remember or memorize this. But she'd always say after I made a speech, "Mr. Wise, you didn't have any notes, did you?" And of course I never did, you know how. Oh, I forgot to tell a story I had. I cut this out, think you'll enjoy it. One player's mother, a high school team, was trying to cheer up the high school coach after the season's most disastrous season. At least it taught the boys, what's that word? Oh, sportsmanship, she said. They're certainly good losers. Good. Howled the miserable coach. They're perfect losers. I would like to read this as I close my remarks. Somebody said, you make a speech, got it, anything written up? Well, of course, no, my nephew from Portchester said, well, Uncle Brent, I'll write you a speech. I haven't written one. But also some other people said you were never at a loss for words, so you don't have to write a speech. But I would like to read this. It was a poem. It's written by the past president of the New York State Teachers Association, and it was in our recent bulletin that came in the last day or so, and I think it's very expressive of this gathering tonight. You have known me in good and bad times. You have seen me when I was happy and when I was sad. You have listened to me when what I said was intelligent and when I talked nonsense. You have been with me when we had fun and when we were miserable. You have watched me laugh and cry. You have understood me when I knew what I was doing and when I made mistakes. Thank you for believing in me and for supporting me and for always being ready to share thoughts together. Once again, people, I am overwhelmed. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for tonight. This isn't fair. These are my hat.
We would request that the people that have the plaques please stay. We're going to have a picture taken. And what was the other message? Oh, please leave the signatures and messages on the table. And I would like to take this time to, again, thank everyone for attending this great occasion. But most of all, I'd like to thank again Mr. William G.H. Wise for all the things that he has done and meant to us. Good night, and God bless you, Mr. Wise. Thank you.